Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network. For the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews, press 1.
Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Oh, hell yeah. Sind Sie das Essen? Nein, wir sind die Jäger. Hey, movie fans, welcome to another edition of the MovieChickk Quick Review here on the Popcorn Talk Network, your broadcast network filled with movie news, discussion, all sorts of fun interviews, all sorts of fun stuff. Today, I am bringing you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and everything in between for the live-action Attack on Titan movie. It's Attack on Titan Part 1. So, guys, I'm just really happy to talk about Attack on Titan again. I haven't talked about it in ages because the AfterBuzz panel was done so long ago and the show has been on hiatus. So for every Attack on Titan fan who has been anxiously awaiting this movie, it's going to be a treat because we have nothing right now except for the manga and to tide us over until the show comes back from hiatus. But guys, the manga's not finished yet either. So this movie is very much welcome for any fan of the franchise. I am going to have to tell you guys up front, though, that if you're not a fan of the series, this movie just probably isn't for you. And that's not saying that it's not a bad movie, that it's not enjoyable. It's just probably that it's not the best way to be introduced to this franchise. It's really great and it's really fun, but no, if you're going to be introduced to it, either start with the manga or start with the anime series. I started with the anime, and I think that's honestly the way to do it. But anyway, let's talk about the movie itself. And even though I just gave a disclaimer for non-fans of the franchise, I'm going to have to give a disclaimer for fans too, because this is an adaptation. And the bad part about that is because the anime and the manga are not finished, there is an entire world within the franchise that they just can't touch on. It's just a reality of creating an adaptation of such an expansive world. And as a result, there are a lot of characters that get left out. And I know exactly how you feel. My favorite character is not in the movie. Reiner is nowhere to be found. And in lieu of characters that are important to the larger world, who they can't really go into, they create character stand-ins. For example, we have a character named Hans, who's our stand-in for Hanji. And we just, as very similar, we have a stand-in for Levi, stand-in for Reiner, people like that. So even though a lot of beloved characters aren't included, there are kind of stand-in characters to allow for kind of those same character beats to be hit. So that's not something to be upset about. It's something to just kind of acknowledge. It's going to be a little different, and you just kind of have to deal with that. And if you can accept that as a fan, then you will still have a good time with this movie. Now, let's talk about some of the really good stuff. The costumes are amazing. It's so cool to actually see the Survey Corps gear, everybody in full getup. It's really cool. The acting is pretty spot on. A lot of the casting was really, really well done. And again, even though a lot of the characters are different, casting and acting were really well done. So that's something to really be appreciated, especially because the characters that are there are so beloved. So that's really important. It's really cool to actually see the Titans in a live action setting, but this is actually kind of where we start to get into a few criticisms of the film, because as cool as it is to see all these cool characters on, like, in live action settings, this was a series that was really lent to the world of animation. And seeing the transition to live action, you can really see that, because there are times where the Titans look amazing, where the makeup is really well done and the effects are amazing. Like seeing the Colossal Titan come over the wall is really cool. There are other times, I'm sad to say, where it kind of looks more like a home movie, like a homemade monster movie, where you can tell it's just kind of a guy standing in front of a green screen. And that's a little disheartening, because yes, the Titans are meant to look grotesque and weird, but I don't think they're really supposed to look like they're not there. So that can be a problem. And granted, I don't watch a lot of live-action adaptations of anime films, or at least Japanese live-action adaptations, so I know that that's just kind of a reality, that sometimes the translation to CG just doesn't work. And I gotta say that sometimes that's a problem here too. The transition is really inconsistent. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes not as much. Another thing, let's talk about some other characterization issues. And I mentioned that there were going to be changes, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The core of the characters are still there. Armin is still very smart and very optimistic and a source of hope for a lot of people. Eren is actually a little bit more subdued than his anime and manga counterpart, but the performance is still really good, and there's still that core thing, his anger, that makes him him. Mikasa is a little bit where I start to take issues with the changes with the adaptation. And this is the one thing I'll make a point about the changes. This is my one complaint that I'm going to allow myself. Again, the acting, spot on. I really, really liked the way Kiko portrayed Mikasa in there. She's strong, but still vulnerable, and she's very much the character that we know and love. My problem is the way that they portray her kind of relationship with Eren, because we have a few role reversals from the manga and from the anime. And here, Mikasa, the reason why she's so great at fighting Titans is because she's under somebody else's tutelage. She basically needed a man to make her stronger. And I can't say that I'm fully on board with that change, because one of the reasons she's so loved is because she's so strong, and that comes from her own inner strength. And so that's something I sort of take issue with, but it's a problem that'll probably be resolved in part 2. And that kind of comes to my final, I guess, complaint about the movie, is that I have the same complaint that I do when it comes to any movie that's broken into 2 parts, because we have to wait for the story to be finished. And it's not something that necessarily needed to be in 2 parts, because as much like movies like Mockingjay and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, it's purposely broken into 2 parts, so I guess that you can get as much of the story in there as you can to please fans, but at the same time, I see a lot of that as kind of a cash grab. But I know this is a more common thing with anime live-action adaptations, because there's a lot of story to cram in there. And believe me, even with leaving a lot of stuff out, the live-action Attack on Titan movie has a lot of stories to kind of cram in there. So again, it's a huge challenge. And so for everything that I'm not super jazzed about for this movie, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, because it's a difficulty in adapting something so unique and so expansive. So you have to forgive a lot of those changes. That being said, I had an absolute blast with this movie, because it's just so amazing to see the Titans and to see the 3D maneuvering gear in use, and the music is fantastic. Sadly, there's nothing, there isn't the theme song from Linked Horizon, but the score itself is still just as epic, and that's so cool. And again, this is a lot of fun at the end of the day, and it's actually really scary, because something that, as disturbing and as unsettling as a lot of the violence is in the animated series and in the manga, there's something different about seeing live action actors going through a lot of the things that we see people going through. So at the end of the day, guys, if you're a fan, you're going to love this movie, and it's going to help feed your Attack on Titan addiction, and you're going to get your fix to help tide you over. I can't wait for part 2, so that's going to be a lot of fun. If you're not a fan, again, the movie isn't going to win you over, but for everybody who loves Attack on Titan, you'll love this movie. So, guys, that just about wraps it up. If you guys haven't already done so, please be sure to follow the MovieChickk and Popcorn Talk on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, and all that fun stuff. You can find a more in-depth version of this review in the description below. You can follow me on Twitter at TheMenguin, that's TheMenguin. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review, and guys, we will see you all next time for our next review. Thanks so much. See you guys next time.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.